Let's move on to main topic and our final main topic today. Main topic number 4. Chris, what is our fourth main topic today?
The saga continues. Chase Lee writes, "Hey, John. I hope you and everyone are having a brilliant day. I was wondering if you saw Bob Iger's recent comments about Scorsese saying Marvel movies aren't cinema. He brought up points about Black Panther's impact and so forth. I personally thought it was a great comeback. What are your thoughts on this, and will this argument ever end? When will it end, John? Can't they all get along?"
I think Big Daddy just came in and laid the hammer down, to be honest with you. So, look, again, just to recap just very, very quickly, nobody has any problem with a Scorsese or a Coppola saying they don't like comic book movies. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The classy thing to do, if you're Francis Ford Coppola or Marty Scorsese, is to go, you know what? Yeah, that's great that there are these comic book movies. Personally, I don't find a lot of substance to them. They're not for me. I don't enjoy them. Fine. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with anybody, even big premier filmmakers not liking certain genre of films. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Where a lot of people have taken issue is that they've actually keep talking about it, and they keep talking about it, and every time they talk about it, they intensify the verbiage. It goes from, as well as the first statement by Marty Scorsese, which I defended, by the way. The first statement by Marty Scorsese, I don't really consider them cinema as well as they're made. I think more cinema, this, and this. And I defended his statement in that. Like, didn't necessarily fully agree, but I defended it. Hey, he's just saying he just considers them a certain way. Nothing wrong with that. But then he talked about it again, and this time ramped it up and started referring to them as invaders. Like unwelcome guests in our theaters. Start talking about movie theaters need to ball up and stop making all the room in the theaters for those movies. When the statistics don't lie, only 3% of the theater space is taken up by comic book movies. So that means 97% is taken up by others. But whatever, we won't get bogged down in facts. Then it gets ratcheted up again with Coppola coming out saying these movies aren't just bad. I'll take it one step further. Marty was being nice. These are despicable. These are. Okay? And then Marty came out and ratcheted it up again, saying young film fans don't know what cinema is. They don't know what cinema is. And now it's gone to actually attacking the fans. And anyway, again, nobody's saying that these guys don't have the right to an opinion. Say, hey, I don't like them. They're not for me. But I think, as I've said before, I think it shows an extreme lack of class. I don't think filmmakers should be talking about other filmmakers. Leave that for fans to do. Leave that for film critics to do. Leave that for whatever. I just think it's kind of Bush League and beneath the godlike stature of a Francis Ford Coppola and of a Marty Scorsese to come out and trash talk other filmmakers' work. It's not their place to do that. And I think it shows a lack of class. That's just me. But whatever. So finally, after the latest thing about now the fans are dumb, the boss has decided to enter the fray. Bob Iger, High Lord and Emperor of all things Disney, has decided to jump into the conversation and lay the hammer down. And he said the following. We're going to read this at length here. He said several interesting things, and he said this: "Doesn't bother me." I think that's a lie. I think it bothered him. "It doesn't bother me, except I'm bothered on behalf of the people who work on those movies. Francis Ford Coppola and Martin Scorsese are two people I hold in the highest regard in terms of films that they've made, as we all should, by the way. The films I've liked, the films we've all watched. But when Francis uses the word despicable, I reserve the word despicable for someone who committed mass murder. These are movies. To whom is he talking? Is he talking to Kevin Feige, who runs Marvel? Or Taika Waititi, who directs? Or Ryan Coogler, who directs for us? I think I've sounded a little more defensive than I wanted to be because I don't really feel the need to defend what we're doing. We are in the business, first of all, we're in the business of making money. We're a profitable business. At the same time at Disney, we try to balance that with telling great stories to the world and infusing them with great values and supporting an employee base of well over 200,000 people around the world with great care and, frankly, respect. So I'm puzzled by it. If they want to bitch about movies, it's certainly their right. You're telling me Ryan Coogler, by the way, who made Fruitvale Station. You're telling me Ryan Coogler making Black Panther is doing something that is somehow or another less than what Martin Scorsese or Francis Ford Coppola has ever done to any of their movies? Like, come on. Yeah, I said it. All right. A couple of things I want to mention, and I read this at length because I thought it was, the boss doesn't often speak. All right, it's not often the boss decides to come out and engage in this stuff. First thing I'm going to say is this, though. All due respect to Bob Iger. No, Taika Waititi, Kevin Feige, and Ryan Coogler have never made anything on the level of The Godfather. Or Goodfellas. Let's just be clear about that, okay? I got to disagree with the boss on that. That is another level, okay? That's another level. So I'm going to disagree with Iger on that one. I'm sorry, Black Panther, great movie. I enjoyed it a lot. Saw it many times in theaters. Did not deserve a Best Picture nomination. I thought it was the third best comic book movie of that year. But nothing Kevin Feige has produced is as good as The Godfather. It's just a matter of opinion. Grant, this is just my subjective opinion, but nothing Kevin Feige, who is amazing and who I just adore, nothing Kevin Feige has ever done is on the level of The Godfather or Goodfellas or what have you. These are iconic level filmmakers. These are two of the greatest to ever do it. So let's just be clear about that. So I disagree with that one point he made. That being said, I think this was a very good response. It's like, okay, you want to call us despicable. All right. You want to say we have no inherent value. Okay. You want to say that the people who enjoy our films are stupid. Okay. Why? And I think it was something necessary. Again, I think if Scorsese, the first comment from Scorsese came out, I think it just could have been left alone and this whole issue would be dead by now. And I don't think we would have ever seen a Bob Iger respond to it. But because, then he's asked about it again, he decides to ratchet up the intensity of the vitriol. And then it goes to Coppola, who decides it's time to ramp it up even more. And at that point, I think it seemed to Bob Iger that it's time for Daddy to put his foot down. And this has got to stop. Like, you want to say you don't like these movies, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. There are movies that we talk about on here that I say, you know what? They're not for me. Like, we talk about there's some anime that I quite enjoy, but anime is not for me. I just say, you know what? It's just generally not something that's for me. But a lot of people love it, and that's awesome. And I just really wish that a Coppola or a Scorsese would have taken that thing. Anyway, I am a little bit surprised that Iger decided to get involved in this and to weigh into this personally. I don't think he ever would had these things just stopped, but they've continued on. And unfortunately, I don't think this is going to end it. Unfortunately, I think as long as there are people who are having success and that there are people who are not, I think you're going to see some back and forth. But I thought this was a very good, measured, proper response. And he paid all due respect to Coppola and Scorsese while doing it, as we all should. We can disagree with Coppola and Scorsese on this, and I think they're showing a lack of class. But these are two gods in filmmaking. Make no mistake about it. These are gods among us when it comes to filmmaking. So anyway, Aaron, you and I have not really had a lot of a chance to talk about this whole thing because you were in Atlanta filming. But what do you think about Iger's response? Was it too much? Should he have not gotten involved at all? Was it a measured one? How do you see it?
Well, I'm going to go back just because we haven't had a chance to talk about it. And when I first heard about Scorsese's comments and then followed by Coppola's and then it just continued, it reminded me of an interview that I read a long time ago and I had to double check. In August of 1980, Mick Jagger said, "Rock and roll has no future." That was in 1980. This is before Van Halen and Bon Jovi and U2's massive success. Like, this is, and that was obviously a statement coming from an aging rock star who, by all accounts, is a god in his genre, no different than Coppola or Scorsese. And sort of seemed a little sour grapes, like the old guard is moving out. There's all these youngins coming up and taking over with this new version of what he was so famous for. And then similarly, when Jerry Lee Lewis said women can't be funny, like someone who is a comedic god essentially dismissing an entire generation of comedians, and not even generation, but an entire group of comedians. That's what this sounds like. And I agree with you. I just go, but to what point? What is the purpose of these comments other than to alienate filmmakers and filmgoers who revere these filmmakers in the way that they should, based on their contribution to this industry? I think that Bob Iger's comments are on point, and I think that they're necessary, they're valuable, and I just don't understand why Coppola and Scorsese continue to make these comments. Like, make the movies that you want to make. At one point, you guys were the rebels. You guys were tearing apart what was the status quo of filmmaking, and you set new precedences, set a new precedence for what people wanted to see and what they expected. So why on earth would you challenge or put down other people for taking strides outside of the box that you created? You know, just because these films are not something that you personally enjoy does not mean that you have the right to dismiss them and to dismiss the joy that people get out of watching them. I just think that the comments are, I think the comments are despicable, to be quite honest. And I appreciate and applaud Bob Iger for standing up for the filmmakers and for speaking out on their behalf.
Now, and listen, I get it to some degree. Some people will come back and say, well, John, you know, an interviewer asked them about it. Okay, then what you say is, I don't like the films personally. Mm-hmm. They're not for me.
Yeah.
That's it. End of just, no one's talking about this anymore if that happens.
Yeah, and you know, or like I said earlier, we were off camera, Lawrence of Arabia has a lot of sand. Yeah. I don't personally like sand. I appreciate the fact that it is a film that many people appreciate. I just have no interest in watching it ever again. It's too much sand and it's too long.
Skywalker.
For me.
Chris, I mean, you've been through all this, watching them yucking everybody else's yum.
Yucking the yum.
What do you think about Bob Iger's comments?
Oh, what a clapback. Well done, Bobby. I love it. I think it's a very classy statement. I think it's a great way to handle this of, look, I'm a businessman. I'm making money. I'm making films. And if you don't like them, hey, that's fine. But also, look at the people you are insulting, because you are insulting them, guys. That's what you're doing. You're not being very nice. And just think about that for a second. It's a very, very sweet little, you get more flies with honey than vinegar kind of thing that Bob's doing right now. And I like it. Because why as a person in any kind of business would you want to insult your potential other coworkers and co-collaborators? Because at the end of the day, that's what a lot of these guys are doing. And while they are masters in what they've done, what are they going to do in the future if they're continually insulting the people who are getting films right now, who are working in things, who are making things that do have great cultural impact? You know, we still will be talking about The Godfather and all these other movies for years and years to come. However, we're also going to be talking about Black Panther for years and years to come. So maybe just think about what you need to say. We're going to all Jeff Carr. Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? And does it need to be said by me right now? If you can't answer yes to all three of those questions, like my daddy says, you shut your mouth.
And you know, I think one of the things I like a lot about Bob Iger's statement is that, you know, he's very cordial throughout the whole statement. You know, blah blah blah. But then he throws in one line just to let it be really known subtly. I'm dead serious about this. Last line of this part. I'm puzzled by it, but hey, they want to bitch about movies.
Yeah.
It's certainly their right. I mean, in that one line, he guys say, hey, look, I'm being really above the board. I'm being very nice. But just so you don't mistake my calm, even tone for being passive about this issue, I'm going to throw in this one extra little line. If you want to bitch about it, fine. I don't know. I like the comment. Question here is, guys, what do you think about Bob Iger's response to this whole thing? I thought it was measured, and I hope this ends. I'll be frank. I know a bunch of you guys are sick of hearing about this whole thing. I'm starting to get sick of talking about it, to be frank. So I hope this kind of ends this whole thing, and now we can just all move on and see lots of different types of movies being made by lots of different filmmakers that we can all go and enjoy. Let's just get back to that. I hope that's the case at any rate. All right, guys, listen.